The box was small, velvet, the same one I'd held in trembling hands the night I asked her to marry me. Back then, it had hope tucked inside. Now, it held something colder, resignation. I didn't cry when I mailed it back. Not when I watched the clerk tape the postage. Not even when I scribbled, "Thanks for the clarity." She had said she needed space, said she needed to breathe, to figure things out. I believed her. Love makes you believe in lies when they're wrapped in soft voices and shared memories. But I didn't expect to see her tagged in a beach photo 2 days later. The same ex who shattered her years ago was now sipping cocktails beside her, hand on her thigh, like the past never cut her, like I never existed. I didn't confront her. I didn't call. I simply packed the engagement ring, folded the note, and mailed it to her family home. That was the day I stopped being the man who begged to be chosen. That was the day I began writing the story she would never be able to erase. Because what she took for granted. Someone else had been quietly watching, waiting, ready to help me rise from the ash of her absence. The night before she left, I heard her suitcase unzip before I heard the words. A low, quiet rasp of wheels rolling across hardwood. No discussion, no fight, just motion, final and practiced, like she'd already walked through this moment in her mind 100 times before I ever caught up. "I just need a week," she said, without turning around. She was folding clothes with mechanical precision, each shirt smoothed, each corner aligned, like if she packed neatly enough, she wouldn't have to see the mess she was leaving behind. "A week," I repeated, the words dry in my mouth, like chalk I couldn't swallow. She didn't flinch. Her voice was soft, but not kind. It was the tone people use with children or dying things, gentle, but already somewhere else, somewhere far. She didn't ask how I felt, didn't ask if I'd be okay, she didn't even ask if I'd wait. Because deep down, we both knew the answer. On the dining table lay her printed itinerary. I noticed it while clearing away our untouched dinner, cold pasta congealing in the bowls. I didn't mean to look, but my eyes scanned anyway, reflexively, hungrily, like they were begging for truth I couldn't ask for out loud. 2 seats. First class, his last name printed under hers. The same man who had disappeared from her life like smoke years ago, the man I thought I had replaced. Turns out, I was just a placeholder until nostalgia pulled her back. Still, I didn't mention it, didn't scream, didn't plead. Instead, I quietly folded the boarding pass back inside and slid it beneath a stack of mail. Because sometimes, when love is already dying, all you can do is sit still and watch it bleed out. That morning, I woke up before her. I brewed her favorite coffee, even though my stomach twisted at the smell. Hazelnuts. She once said it reminded her of her childhood. I wondered if he remembered that too. She came out of the bedroom in soft grey leggings and a faded sweatshirt, her travel clothes. She always looked most beautiful in moments she didn't try. I reached for her suitcase without a word. She let me. We rode the elevator down in silence, 27 floors of quiet, broken only by the hum of electricity and the occasional creak of cables. When the lobby doors opened, she turned to me. There was no guilt in her expression, just distance, like she was already halfway gone. "I'll text when I land," she said, like we were co-workers parting after a meeting. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I didn't trust my voice to survive speaking. She leaned in and kissed my cheek, soft, hollow, like someone sealing a letter they never intended to send. And still, I didn't stop her. I walked her to the curb, where the car waited. The driver opened the trunk. She didn't look back as she slid inside. Then the door shut. And I stood there. Not out of forgiveness, but because sometimes, love runs so deep you let someone walk away, just to see if they ever look back. She didn't. The taillights blurred in the morning fog as the car turned the corner. The city was still quiet, just waking up, yawning into a sunrise I didn't care to see. I stood outside until my fingers went numb. Not from the cold, but from holding on too long to something that had already slipped through. When I got back upstairs, the coffee was still warm, her mug sat on the table, steam rising like a ghost, and next to it, like a cruel joke, was the bridal magazine she'd left open on the page marked Beach Weddings for the Soul. I stared at it, then I closed it. Somewhere above the clouds, she was probably sipping champagne beside him, laughing at old memories I had no part in. And here I was, still clinging to a promise she had already abandoned. That was the moment it clicked, not when I saw the name on the ticket, not even when she kissed my cheek like a stranger. It was then, holding that stupid glossy magazine, that I realized she hadn't just left me, she'd left us. And worse, she didn't even flinch when she did. 3 days, 72 hours. I counted each one like they were rosary beads, hoping prayer could still make sense of this, but silence was her only reply. No landed safely, no thinking of you, not even the obligatory, I miss you. Just digital dust. And still, I checked. I refreshed her feed like a ritual, like the right moment might finally show her face with guilt in her eyes, a blanket over her shoulders, typing something only I would understand. She told me not to, asked me to trust the space, said she didn't want to feel watched. And I'd promised. But promises break quietly, especially when you're the only one holding them. The first time I saw the post, I didn't react, my hands didn't shake, my breath didn't catch, my heart didn't lurch. It simply stopped. Like a skipped beat in a song I used to love. There she was. On a sunlit balcony draped in orange and gold, laughter caught mid-motion. Wearing the red bikini I'd given her for her last birthday. The one she once said made her feel brave. Leaning into him. His arm curved around her waist like it never left. Her head tilted toward his shoulder like it had always belonged there. His caption was a slap delivered in cursive font. Some things are worth the second chance. Her reply, a single heart emoji. Not for me, not anymore. Just like that, I became the absence between their reunion, and my world, quietly, painfully, folded into itself. I didn't cry. Crying would have meant I still believed she belonged to me. Instead, I closed the app, locked my phone, and stared at the ceiling until the morning dimmed into dusk. The apartment didn't feel empty, it felt haunted. By her scent still on the pillow. Her hair tie still wrapped around the bathroom faucet. By the coffee cup on the windowsill, her lipstick smudge untouched. Even my plants leaned toward the window like they were reaching for something that was never coming back. I made coffee out of habit. Black, bitter. I burned my tongue and welcomed the pain, because at least that pain made sense. I turned to the counter, and there it was. The ring. Still sitting in its box, half open like a question no one would ever answer. I picked it up, felt the weight of its promise settle into my palm. How many nights had I stared at this thing, imagining a forever she whispered she wanted? Funny. For something that cost me 3 months' salary, it didn't feel expensive anymore, it felt empty. I remembered the night I proposed, her in a white dress, rain tapping softly on the cafe windows, the candlelight flickering between us. She had said yes with tears in her eyes. I thought they were joy. Maybe they were confusion, or guilt, or the echo of another name she never said out loud. I wanted to scream. Instead, I pulled open the kitchen drawer, the one where we kept things we didn't know where else to put. Batteries, scissors, leftover tape. I placed the ring inside. Shut it. And with it, something inside me too. I walked into the living room, sat on the couch where we used to binge-watch our quiet nights. The clock on the wall ticked like it was mocking me, steady, unaffected. The windows let in light, but not warmth. The walls held photos, but no presence. Everything around me looked like us, but none of it felt like her anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the bed staring at her empty side, counting how many heartbeats it took to forget the shape of her shadow. And as the city lights outside blinked against the fogged glass, I realized something brutal. You can give someone the world, and they'll still board a flight to someone who once dropped theirs. And worse? They'll smile while doing it. The apartment was too quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't invite peace, only memory. Every corner of this place still breathed her, the faint scent of jasmine on the pillowcase, the half-burned candle by the bathtub, the chipped mug she refused to throw away because it held stories. I couldn't scream, so I wrote, not texts, not emails, letters, pen pressed to paper like it was the only way I could bleed without making a sound. Each night, I sat by the window, letting the moonlight pour across the desk like silver forgiveness I didn't deserve, and I wrote to her. The first letter was rage. I told her how she had gutted me without a blade, how her silence screamed louder than any goodbye, how watching her in his arms made me feel like a backup plan that had finally expired. I pressed hard into the paper, ink bleeding through as if even the page couldn't hold the weight of what I felt. I sealed it. Hold it. Stared at her name written across the envelope like a bruise. Then I tore it open. Not because I changed my mind, but because I knew, deep down, she wouldn't read it, and if she did, she wouldn't feel it. So I wrote another. This one is softer, sad, not angry, a letter filled with, "I wish you had told me," and, "I would have waited, if only you asked." I told her how I used to imagine our future, a dog, a garden, a child with her smile and my nervous hands. I wrote about the kitchen sunlight that once made her look like something holy, and how now, it just made everything feel exposed. I folded that one gently, pressed it flat like it was sacred. I placed it beside the first one on my desk. And then I wrote again. Each letter became a version of me, grieving, bargaining, screaming, surrendering. Each time I thought this would be the one I'd send, this would be the truth I wanted her to choke on. But every time I sealed it, something inside me whispered, "What's the point of sending pain to someone who already feels nothing?" So I'd tear it open, again and again, until my trash bin overflowed with ripped envelopes and unread heartbreak. One night, the rain came, soft at first, like it was unsure of itself, then heavier, cleansing, cruel, constant. It beat against the window like a warning, and I sat there, heart soaked in the flood she left behind. That night, I picked up a fresh sheet, but I didn't write a confession, I didn't write a scream, I just wrote 2 words. Thank you. No punctuation, no sign-off, just that. It wasn't sarcasm, it wasn't a defeat, it was the only truth left between us. Thank you for leaving before the wedding. Thank you for showing me who you were before I vowed to forget myself for you. Thank you for breaking what I didn't realize was already bending. I folded the note slowly, deliberate, clean, no mess, no ink stains, no jagged edges. Just 2 words, 2 syllables, and a silence that said more than all the screaming ever could. I slid it into an envelope, wrote her name, no address, I didn't need one. Some messages aren't meant to be sent, just written so you can finally stop carrying them. I placed the envelope in the drawer beside the ring, let them sit together like 2 ghosts who once believed in forever. And that night, for the first time, I didn't write anything else. I didn't need to. Because thank you was the end of my side of the story. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of hers. Excellency. It was a Tuesday. Uneventful. Bleak skies. The kind of day you forget unless something inside you insists you never should. I remember the mail truck parked across the street, its engine humming like background static to the ache I was about to box up. On the kitchen table sat the ring, still in its velvet case, unopened since the night she left. It looked smaller now, maybe because forever had shrunk so drastically in her absence. I didn't cry, I didn't hesitate, instead, I moved like I was packing something fragile, like grief wrapped in silk. A simple cardboard box, no ribbons, no drama, just cardboard, tape, and a silent goodbye. I placed the ring inside first, then the note, the one with just 2 words, thank you. I didn't even fold it, I wanted her to see it clearly, no metaphor, no message to decode, just those 2 words sitting beside the symbol of a promise she so easily abandoned. The tape hissed as it sealed the past shut, a sound so final, it felt louder than all the apologies I never got. As I held the box in my hands, I realized, I wasn't mailing her the ring, I was mailing back the future. The one we dreamed up in dim restaurants, whispered about beneath shared blankets, traced with fingertips on foggy car windows. Gone now. And maybe it had never really been ours to begin with. I walked to the post office in silence, the clouds hung low, brushing the tops of buildings like they, too, wanted to disappear for a while. At the counter stood a woman with soft eyes and a practiced smile. "Sending something fragile?" she asked, gesturing to the box. I nodded, not because it was fragile, but because I had been. She weighed it, typed something into her computer. "Would you like insurance?" And without missing a beat, I said, "No, it's already broken." She paused, just long enough for silence to make a home between us. I slid my card across the counter. The scanner beeped. Just like that, it was no longer mine, no longer ours. As she handed me the tracking number, I didn't take it. I left it there, on the counter. Because I didn't want to know when she'd receive it. Didn't want to wait for a reaction that would never come. Some packages don't need to be tracked. Some goodbyes don't need to be confirmed. As I stepped outside, the first drop of rain kissed my cheek. Not a storm, just a drizzle, like the sky itself had more to say than I did. I didn't open an umbrella, didn't flinch, I just walked. Let the water soak into my sleeves, my collar, my skin. Let it wash away the trace of her still clinging to me. Somewhere, maybe she was laughing. Maybe she'd see the box and roll her eyes. Maybe she'd open it, read the note, and shrug. But none of that mattered now. Because when I sealed that box, I wasn't sending her a message. I was sending myself a line in the sand. This is where it ends. This is where I stop begging to be chosen. The rain got heavier, people rushed past, umbrellas open, heads ducked, coats pulled tight, but I walked slower, lighter, like I had just set down a weight no one else could see, and maybe I had. Because sometimes, letting go doesn't feel like a loss. It feels like a release. It had been 2 weeks since I mailed the ring, 14 slow, echoing days where time didn't move so much as it lingered. I hadn't been looking for anything that afternoon, not connection, not comfort, not even distraction, just a walk. A way to stretch the silence that had grown too tight inside the apartment walls. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the world still felt wet, leaves dripping, sidewalks gleaming, the air soaked in a melancholy kind of warmth. That's when I passed it. A narrow glass door tucked between a florist and a forgotten bookstore, its frame chipped, the sign above it barely legible. Gallery of quiet things. I stepped inside. Not for art, not for meaning, but because the air smelled like oil paint and old wood, and somehow, it reminded me of beginnings, back when I believed in them. The space was small, minimal, white walls, soft track lighting, and silence so sacred it felt like music. That's when I saw her. Not her, someone else. She stood with her back to me, wrapped in a sage green coat that fell just below her knees. Her hair, chestnut brown and tied loosely at the nape, curled slightly from the rain's lingering breath. She wasn't moving, only looking. At a single painting hung low on the far wall, a cracked ceramic vase, imperfect and jagged, yet somehow still full. Its cracks traced with gold, blooming wildflowers spilling out from the rupture. A painting of something broken, still choosing to hold life. And then she whispered, softly, almost to herself, "Even broken things hold beauty." She didn't know I was behind her, but the words landed anyway, right between my ribs. I didn't speak, didn't clear my throat, didn't ruin the moment with logic or introductions. Because something in me, something I thought had curled up and died the moment my fiancé stepped into someone else's arms, stirred. I stood beside her, a full step away. Why? Close enough to breathe in her warmth, distant enough to feel the boundary between strangers. She turned then, slowly. Her eyes met mine. And it wasn't lightning, it wasn't love, but it was recognition, not of faces, of ache. We didn't ask names, didn't offer backstories, just stood there, side by side, watching a painting of a cracked vase refuse to be forgotten. "It's called resilience," she said after a pause, nodding toward the plaque beneath the frame. The artist lost someone she loved, said she painted this when she realized grief doesn't need fixing, just space to bloom. I nodded, not because I understood it completely, but because I wanted to. She smiled, but not fully. A half curve of lips that said to me too without needing words. And then, just like that, she moved on, disappearing into the next room. The soft tap of her boots leaves an invisible trail behind. I stayed in front of the vase, longer than I should have, because for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like something was discarded. I felt seen, not as someone she lost, but as someone who survived. And in the reflection of that broken vase, I wondered, maybe that's all healing ever is. Not forgetting, not replacing, just finding someone who sees the cracks and doesn't look away. Her name was Elise. I didn't ask at first, but the second time I returned to the gallery, the same one tucked between the florist and the forgotten bookstore, she was there again, standing by the same cracked vase painting like it whispered things no one else could hear. Back for the flowers? She said, turning to me with a soft smile. I hadn't realized I was staring. They're still blooming, I replied. That's the point, she answered, and this time, she offered her name like a hand held out between ghosts. Elise. Not, what's your story? Not, why do you look like you haven't slept in weeks? Just a name. And a shared silence that felt like a safe place instead of a gap to be filled. I told her mine eventually. Not the whole thing, just the parts that didn't sound like begging. She didn't pry, she didn't offer pity wrapped in kindness or nods wrapped in performance. She just listened. Fully, quietly. As if every pause was part of the language. Some days, we sat in the gallery for hours, saying nothing. She called it sitting in the still, where nothing was expected, and somehow, everything was understood. We talked, too, slowly, carefully, about art, about memory, about the difference between loneliness and solitude. She once said, silence doesn't always mean something's missing, sometimes it's just the sound of breathing again. I thought about how long I'd been holding my breath, since the moment she boarded that flight, since the moment I stopped being someone to return to. Elise didn't fix me, she didn't hand me new promises or try to fill empty spaces with hurried affection. She simply made space for the parts of me that had been too jagged for anyone else. When I told her about the letter I never sent, the 2-word note, I expected her to ask what it said. She didn't, she only smiled, like she already knew. There's power in what we choose to say, she whispered. Not every wound needs to be echoed to matter. She loved abstract art, coffee with too much cinnamon, and rainy windows. Her hands moved when she spoke, like her words needed wings, and her laugh. Her laugh didn't feel like a replacement, it didn't echo where the pain used to live. It felt like a beginning. The kind of beginning that doesn't chase the ending. The kind that just sits beside you, on a bench in a gallery, watching a cracked vase, and saying nothing, because nothing is the only thing that ever felt real. One evening, as the sun began pouring gold through the high windows of the gallery, she looked over at me, not intensely, just briefly, gently, and said, you know, broken things aren't just beautiful because they survived, they're beautiful because they dared to be seen again. I didn't reply. But something inside me did. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't flinch when I felt it. It was raining again. The kind of rain that doesn't scream or scatter, just lingers, soft against the windows, steady against the skin, like a memory too polite to leave. Elise had just left. We'd spent the evening walking through the same gallery hallways we had unknowingly built our silences in. She liked to pause in front of a painting of a staircase that led to nowhere. Said it reminded her that healing isn't always linear. Some nights you climb. Others, you just stand still. I was standing still when it happened. The phone lit up on my nightstand, cutting through the dark like a wound reopening. And there it was. Her name. Not saved under anything sweet anymore, just plain, clinical letters. Still, it felt like looking into a mirror I had locked away. My stomach turned, slow and bitter. I didn't touch the screen, just stared. The ringtone faded, then the soft buzz of a voicemail being born. I waited, almost scared it would end in silence, but she spoke. Can we talk? A breath. I think I made a mistake. That was all. 7 words, and somehow, they felt both everything and not enough. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone still face up, screen gone dark now, but her voice echoed inside the room like she was still here. I wanted to answer. God, some old, injured part of me ached to answer, to ask her why. Why him? Why lie? Why leave love like a suitcase on the curb? Why me? But then, there was Elise, her laugh in my ears, the way she listened with her whole presence, the quiet bench in the gallery where we had stitched a new kind of silence. And I realized something. Some calls aren't a cry for reconnection, they're just echoes of guilt. And I wasn't an echo anymore. I placed the phone down without replying, not out of anger, not even strength. But peace, the kind that doesn't demand closure, the kind that doesn't ask why, because it already knows. Outside, the rain tapped on the window pane like it was trying to comfort me, and for the first time since the unraveling began, I didn't flinch. I closed my eyes, and let her voice fade into nothing. Because I knew something she didn't, something I hadn't known before Elise, before the gallery, before the vase with golden cracks. Some mistakes aren't meant to be fixed, some are just meant to be outgrown. The gallery looked different that night. Not because the walls had changed, but because I had. Soft jazz floated from somewhere near the ceiling. The lighting was warmer than usual, more golden, less sterile. The room hummed with quiet conversations, clinking wine glasses, footsteps slow and deliberate against the wooden floor. Elise had invited me 2 weeks prior, slipping the invitation into my coat pocket with a wink. "No pressure," she had whispered, "but I think you'll want to see this one." And now, here I was, hands tucked in my pockets, heart steadier than I expected. I moved through the small crowd like someone walking through memory, carefully, quietly. Faces passed, voices blurred, but I wasn't looking for anyone, I was looking for it. Then I saw it, mounted on a wall bathed in soft amber light, centered, framed in unfinished wood, unapologetically broken, unbelievably whole. It was the vase, but not the one from before. This time, the cracks didn't whisper, they shone, filled with radiant lines of gold that pulsed like veins of light through shadow. Wildflowers still bloomed from within, but they were freer now, unruly, climbing, reaching beyond the canvas as if they refused to be tamed by the borders. At the bottom right corner, etched in soft strokes, was the title, "Thank You." I didn't move, didn't blink. The words hit like the note I had never sent, echoing back to me from a place I never thought I'd return to. She appeared beside me like a quiet thought. "I wondered how long it would take you to find it," she said gently, her voice wrapped in a warmth I didn't know I needed. "You made the cracks glow." "Kintsugi," she nodded, her eyes never leaving the canvas. "The art of breaking beautifully. It's a Japanese philosophy. They repair broken pottery with gold, not to hide the damage, but to honor it." I turned to her. "Why thank you?" Elise smiled, and in that smile, I saw every conversation we never needed to have. "Because pain doesn't have to end in bitterness," she said. "Sometimes, it's just a door. One you walk through, to find a room you never knew existed." I looked back at the painting, and suddenly, it wasn't about a vase, it wasn't about betrayal, or abandonment, or the question I never got to ask. It was about survival, about what you do with the silence after the shouting ends, about turning what broke you into something that holds light. All this time, I had measured my story by what she did to me. By the flight she took without goodbye. By the post that shattered me. By the voicemail that never earned a reply. But standing there, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Maybe it wasn't about her anymore. Maybe it never truly was. Maybe the story was about what I did after. About the days I stood up, when no one was watching, the letters I never sent, the e-ring I mailed back, the silence I learned to carry like music, the woman who painted her own wounds with gold and asked me nothing but my presence. I felt something tighten in my throat, not grief, not anger, just closure. The kind that doesn't slam a door, only leaves it gently ajar. As the night wound down, Elise moved through the crowd with ease, stopping to smile, to explain, to answer. But she looked at me often, as if reminding me, "You're not a visitor here, you belong in this room too." And I did. That night, I didn't dream of her, not the one who left. I dreamed of gold-lined cracks and wildflowers blooming through broken stone. I dreamed of thank you notes and open doors and quiet beginnings that didn't ask for permission. It was late autumn when I heard she was back. A friend mentioned it in passing, like it was small talk, but some names still echo, even when spoken softly. "She's alone now," he said, stirring his coffee. "I think they didn't last." I didn't ask, didn't lean forward, didn't pretend to care. But something shifted in the air. Not pain, not longing, just a ripple, like a breeze through a room you'd already left. He told me she was still wearing the necklace I gave her, the one with the silver pendant etched with the word breathe. She had cried when I gave it to her, once saying it reminded her that she was allowed to feel fragile. Now she wore it like a ghost of something she didn't protect. But I didn't feel anything. No collapse, no heat rising behind my eyes, no ache curling beneath my ribs. Because by the time she returned, I was already gone. Not from the city, not from the memories, but from her. You see, when I sealed that ring inside the box months ago, I wasn't just letting her go, I was letting myself go, from the version of me that waited, begged, forgave. In that quiet act of goodbye, I'd done something rare. I'd handed her the freedom she mistook for escape. But more importantly, I gave it to myself. Now, I sat in the same cafe where I once rehearsed my proposal. A gallery brochure in my hand. Elise's next exhibition circled in pen. Across the street, the leaves danced in slow circles, gold and red carpeting the pavement like time shedding gently around me. She might walk through that door. She might not, but it didn't matter anymore. Because some stories don't need dramatic endings, they don't need closure carved from confrontation, they need something quieter. A pause, a choice, a whisper of gratitude for everything that didn't destroy you. And if she ever reads that note I sent, the one with only 2 words, the one folded beside the ring, she'll misunderstand it, she'll think it was for her. But it wasn't. It was for the man I used to be. The one who loved deeply, lost quietly, and finally learned how to leave without rage. Thank you, I had written. Not out of bitterness, not out of spite. But because sometimes, that's the most powerful closure of all, the thank you they never see coming. And as I stepped into the crisp air, hands warm around a fresh cup of coffee, heart light, eyes forward, I realized, my story wasn't about who left, it was about who stayed, who healed, who learned to begin again, with gold running through his cracks, and nothing to prove.